should be good. All right, I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, B'Chakadash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is The Image is Not a Picture of Cesare Borgia. I should have put the image of the beast. I'm joined here by Elder Kanak.
Shalom.
And I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, B'Chakadash. And pretty much we were listening to the Elder Yashawamba's video, The Beast, His Image, and His Mark, explained on Remnant Save 144. And pretty much I didn't realize the Elder typed in what he typed in up here. As you can see, that the Renaissance reestablished Rome. I was just listening to him, how he spoke about the Renaissance and how the Renaissance was the reestablishment of architecture and art and different things of that nature. And the thought came to mind to just start typing in different questions on the Google, and it started just stuff started coming, right? So matter of fact, we're just gonna go right into it.
What Roman customs or that one? Which one you want?
Let's start off with, hold on for 1 second. Damn it, Satan got to do his thing, baby. All right, we're gonna start off with what Roman customs?
All right. So this is what Roman customs were revived during the Renaissance.
And I typed it in, and I didn't realize that the Elder pretty much typed in something similar. But go ahead.
This is from the AI overview. During the Renaissance, there was a significant revival of Roman customs.
Wait a minute. This one, mine is saying something different. During the Renaissance, various Roman customs were revived.
It's saying the same thing, basically.
Okay, so go ahead.
It says there was significant revival of Roman customs, particularly in art, architecture, and philosophy. This included the reintroduction of classical Rome architectural styles like columns and arches.
Right. So his is reading a little different from mine.
Okay.
But the main thing is the architecture. The columns, the style and columns. Right here it says classical Roman ideals, styles, and themes. Go ahead.
It says, as well as a renewed interest in Roman philosophical ideas, particularly humanism. Specific examples: architecture, Renaissance architecture like Bernini drew inspiration from Roman buildings for symmetry, and I probably pronounced that not the best.
That's all good, but it's a little hard. I know it's going to be a little hard for them to follow here, but it's all good. It's pretty much saying the same thing, just with different wording. But pretty much it's just the Roman architectural reshaping of America through their governmental agencies. It doesn't mean that every building in America was structured like the Roman architecture. Go ahead.
It says drew inspiration from Roman buildings for symmetry, proportion, and specific architectural elements like columns, arches, and domes. The Metropolitan Museum of Art provides more detail on architecture in Renaissance Italy.
Right, and we used to go to that museum. Go ahead.
Sculpture. This is the second bullet point. Renaissance sculptors like Donatello began to create large-scale freestanding statues inspired by Roman sculptures.
Right, and you have the same thing today in America, and that was all through the revival of the beginning stages of the Roman Empire, being revived again, and through the structures and the statues, statuettes, the building structures of certain structures back then that was really fully fulfilled here in America. Go ahead.
Including nude figures and deceptions of human emotion.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what they did back in ancient Rome. Go ahead.
As seen in the works of Nicola Pisano, according to the Renaissance Workshop. Philosophy and literature, the third bullet point. Renaissance thinkers like Petrarch look back to classical Rome thinkers like Socrates, Aristotle, and Circulo for guidance on ethics, politics, and literature. This led to the revival of Roman literary forms and themes.
Mm-hmm.
Humanism, the fourth. The Renaissance movement of humanism emphasized the importance of human potential and achievements, drawing inspiration from the Roman concept of humanity, and renewed interest in classical Latin texts.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what they're doing here too. Yuval Noah Harari, said that that we could piss the Most High off as much as we want because we have the technology to make it rain,
Mm-hmm.
and to pretty much manipulate the weather, and pretty much what they're doing is they're bragging against the Most High, like the scripture says, "Shall the axe boast itself against him that heweth it therewith?" Because you're just the axe, you're the sword, you're not the actual person, wielding it. It's the Most High Yahweh that's wielding you on the planet. Like it says in there's two scriptures, one in Proverbs, I think it's 16:1 and Proverbs 21:1, where it speaks about the heart of the king being in the hand of the Lord, and that pretty much the Most High controls every aspect of man and what they do, and He also rules in the kingdom of men. You see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The fifth bullet point: art and decoration. Renaissance artists and decorators drew inspiration from Roman art and decorative arts, including naturalism and human anatomy. The sixth, political ideas. Some Renaissance thinkers like Machiavelli studied Roman political writings and ideas to understand governance and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
In essence, the Renaissance saw a widespread revival of Roman customs across various aspects of life, including art, architecture, literature, philosophy, and political thought, all inspired by the rediscovery and appreciation of classical Roman civilization.
Right, and then here on other revival aspects, it says Roman gods. While not a widespread revival of Roman religious practices, there was some interest in Roman mythology and classical themes in art and literature. Yeah, but the Roman Empire allowed you to keep your own religion, your own religious rights within being a citizen of Rome, as long as you follow the Roman rule. And that's the same thing here in America. You have the freedom of religion. You can worship whatever you want as long as you follow the laws of America, right? Then it says Roman law. Renaissance scholars studied Roman law, influencing legal systems and legal thought. And that's pretty much why America is established the way that it is. And even when the so-called founding forefathers were here, they said, let's establish America like Rome, because it was already a political, entity, their economy, their law, and the way that it was structured. America just pretty much mimicked that. That's why when you go to all of the different governmental buildings around America, you're going to see them structured as the Roman architecture with the columns and all of that, right? So before we go to the next one, matter of fact, no, let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Hopefully they read similar or the same.
How was Rome revived in America?
How was Rome revived in America? This is the next one that I typed in.
Okay. This is how was Rome revived in America? AI overview. Rome was revived Rome was revived in America primarily through a process of cultural borrowing and inspiration, particularly in the realm of architecture, political thought, and even a sense of national identity.
Mm-hmm.
The founding fathers, for instance, saw ancient Rome as a model for a new republic.
And that's true. And if you do the research, you'll find that out. This is why they set up, Washington, D.C. the way they did. Where do you think they got the idea for the Lincoln Memorial,
Mm-hmm.
or the Capitol building, or Persephone's on top of, one of those, I forget what is that, the Capitol, one of them, you have Persephone's on top of there, which is a woman, which draws influence from the mother goddess, worship that went all the way back to the beginning of them first civilizations back during the time of Babylon, Egypt, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
The founding fathers, for instance, saw ancient Rome as a model for a new republic incorporating Roman ideas into the U.S. Constitution.
Incorporating Roman ideas into the Roman Constitution. And that's why sometimes in order to understand certain scriptures, you have to be able to understand certain histories that you're not going to find every little detail in the scriptures. But what you will find in the scriptures is certain names of certain, leaders of different nations. You have Claudius, that was one of the Roman emperors of Rome. You're going to find certain little hints and clues of that. So in order to be able to find out what was going on back then, you have to research some of that history, and then you'll see how the correlation between America and the ancient Roman Empire. And that's what the image of the beast is. Not no picture of Cesare Borgia, because they weren't worshiping Cesare Borgia back then. Cesare Borgia didn't come till about 1450 some odd years later. Go ahead.
Yep. Now it says here is a more detailed look at Roman influence America. And they're going to give you 3 bullet points. The first one is Roman classical revival. The architectural style of ancient Rome, characterized by classical columns, pediments, and symmetry, was adopted in the early 1800s, particularly in the South. Buildings like the Bank of Pennsylvania and Philadelphia exemplify this style.
Yeah, because banks are connected to the government, really. Because when you go to the court system, you have the judge that sits on the bench. The bench goes back to the word bankoff. Is where you get the word bank. Because pretty much what he's doing is pretty much just bringing in revenue, for the international banking family in so many words.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Greek revival. While the Roman classical revival was popular, the emphasis shifted to Greek architecture around 1820, partially due to the desire to distance American architecture from English influences.
Yeah, and pretty much when you really go into the history of it, Greece was the first Edomite empire to rule. That's why the saying that comes from Esau doesn't come from the other nations. They said civilization started with the Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
But that civilization that they're talking about is the civilization of the Edomites. The civilization of the Edomites started with the Greeks, but really it goes further back than that. It goes back to the Edomites. But the Edomites, when they were known as Edomites back then, didn't have influence over the whole known world. They just ruled a small realm. They had kings among each other, but they didn't have the influence that they did until the Edomite Greeks took over under Alexander the Great. And that's why I said when he died and he gave his realm over to his generals, it said, and they started to have children, then they started to rule the earth. It says evil started to multiply. Why? Because the wicked were finally in power. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Monumental scale. The monumental scale of Roman public buildings influenced the design of federal buildings in Washington, D.C., mm-hmm. which was envisioned as a new Rome.
Right. It's envisioned as a new Rome. So you see how the ancient, all you got to do is type in Roman architecture. Go to your Google images or search. If you're not that goddamn lazy, if you can move some of your fingers, if you can get your hand out of that bag of hot Cheetos, and the grip off of that, that big gulp, and reach for your keyboard, you can type in architecture of Rome, and you're gonna see all of those different architectures of Rome and the way that they stylized their buildings, specifically their governmental buildings. And even when you go up in time during the time of Hadrian, you even had something called the Hadrian Mall. And I made mention that there was this place we went to that had buildings that was somewhat similar to like a mall, and it resembled the marketplace or the malls of Hadrian, which was a Jake. So that's not a new concept. You're going into a store, and buying stuff, going in there, and they have racks of clothing or racks of whatever food, that they're selling. That's not a new concept. That's an old concept. It's just been revived here in America. So you got you.
Yep. Let me continue.
Were you looking for something? Yeah, yeah.
No, I was just doing something there.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Yep. Romanesque revival, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Mm-hmm.
It says this style, which emerged in the mid 19th century, incorporated Roman architecture elements like round arches and corbels. Number 2, political and legal influence. Separation of powers. The U.S. Constitution structure, with its separation of powers between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, has roots in Roman Republican ideas.
Yeah, and that's why when you go into the legal system, you know, in order to become a lawyer or a judge or whatever the case may be, you have to, the law that you study, you have to know certain Latin terms, because all of those terms that they have in English have a root going back to the Latin. Like you have something called stare decisis, which we thought it was stare decisis back then. You know, same thing, which means to stand upon that which has been decided. And these are certain court cases, you know, legal court cases that have been, you know, judged, for lack of better words, from these judges, and they're now in the books. So now you can, you know, reach to those cases that have been decided to use that as a part of your defense, you know, in whatever situation you find yourself in. You see? So all of these ideas and thoughts go back to the ancient Roman Empire. And that is the image, because the image is a reflection of how the Roman Empire was run. It's the same way that America's run, you know? So if you were to put, like you had America and you had its architecture, and let's say that there's a pond in front of it, you see a reflection. And when you look at the reflection of what you see in America, you'll see a reflection of Rome. Instead of having America, you see Rome. So you can understand, you know, because America, in its political system that they run America in, is a mere reflection of the ancient Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And here it says, in essence, the revival of Rome in America refers to the ways in which early Americans drew inspiration from Roman history, culture, and political ideas to build their own nation. See? Why? Why did they just say, you know, because they could have chose any nation. They could have chosen the Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sorry, they could have chose the Egyptians. Yep. They could have chose the Babylonians. They could have chose any nation out there.
Mm-hmm.
Why choose the Roman Empire?
The Chinese.
They could have chose the Chinese, the Japanese. There was many different cultures out there.
Yep.
You want to say something?
No. Well, just land back on what you're saying. Why was there a revival of the Roman style of architecture and thought,
right,
and political, how to rule your nation, how to set up the government, the terminology, your language? Why was that? Why didn't they choose the Chinese or the Japanese or the Arabs? You had certain civilizations back then that were thriving and had history,
mm-hmm.
long history of ruling for a long period of time. Why did they go back to Rome? Because those are the same individuals coming back. Okay.
And that goes back to prophecy. Because if they would have set it up like China or Ishmael or any of those other nations, it would have broke prophecy. And the Most High is not a man that he shall lie. You know, he's not going to allow his prophecies to go off track, because he doesn't break his word, not for his holy name's sake. He puts his word above his name. So he's not going to break his own words, not even for his great name's sake, because his reputation stands upon what he said and what he says. So it says this influence was particularly strong in the design of buildings. And it's not just any building. You have to understand that it's dealing with the political system, the governmental system of America, the establishment of political institutions, and the shaping of American identity.
Yep.
And what is the identity reflective of? Rome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's the next one?
Were they?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like they're like identical, basically, when you put them side by side, and you go through each aspect of how a civilization is established and created. there's so many parallels and similarities that are, can't be a coincidence. Right. And to the spiritual man, we understand that as prophecy of Rome coming back in the form of America, NATO and the EU. Okay, it's that same system is the dragon. The scriptures talk about the dragon that had the deadly wound.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna go.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The dragon that had the deadly wound, and then that wound was healed, meaning Rome fell, and then Rome came back as America, NATO, the EU. Okay, the revival, and this is why there was a revival of the philosophy. There was a revival of architecture, political thought. Okay, the language. There's parallels. You have the Roman numerals. They teach you this in school. Cursive. All these different things that go back to Rome. All right, even to where the women are so-called free and have liberation. Fast food. Theater, the gym, right? The different the sports, the bread and circus. I mean, it's so many. It's because there's so many parallels because this is all prophecy.
Yeah. Oh, another thing too. Another part of the image, Salaka, is not just the governmental buildings, but it's also their entertainment world.
Yep.
You have the amphitheaters, you have the back in Rome, you had the Colosseum, which today you have stadiums.
Yep.
Same thing.
Movies now it's on a whole nother level. They can do this 3D, and they have all this high level technology, right, to be able to do those plays in that theater, and the different things that get the people all messed up in the mind and confused, and even now to push their agenda, push their witchcraft even more.
That's right.
Okay, this is all the revival. This is why you have Esau knows that there's parallels between America and the Roman Empire. Well, even now, the collapse of America is somewhat identical to the collapse of the Roman Empire.
Oh yeah.
And you have economists that would actually come out and tell you that.
Yeah, and because what collapsed the economy of Rome? The devaluation of the denarius.
That's it.
Which was a common Roman money system that they cheapened the actual coin, and made the economy or the dollar of less value, or their form of currency of less value, and that brought the empire down. All right. So you know what? Before we read the next one, let's go to Revelation 13:1.
Okay.
So we can hit a precept, bring the point out, and then go to that, and then we'll probably end it after that.
Revelation 13:1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy.
Right, and that 7 heads and 10 horns is a representation of all of the empires of Esau, beginning with the Greek Empire and ending with America today, which America would be the 8th head when you understand scriptures and prophecy. Go ahead.
Verse 2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard.
The leopard represents the Greek Empire, because the Greek Empire was the beginning of this beast system. That's why they say civilization started with the Greeks. Why? Because the civilization of the so-called white man, which are Edomites, goes back to the Greek Empire. Prior to that, they were in a very low state. After that, that's when they started to gain foothold of the world and resources and riches that they stole from the nations.
Yep, it says, and his feet were as the feet of a bear.
Now, the bear here represents Russia, but Russia is not a part of the beast. The beast, the reason why I use the word feet is because that's the end of the beast. So the bear is a representation of their end. And who's going to bring an end to them? Well, the Edomite Russians, the ones that are Edomites. And you have Jakes among them also. But that's going to be the destruction of them. But Russia itself was never part of the 7 heads. Go ahead. Because Russia itself back then didn't exist. It wasn't until roughly 860, 865, the Elder Pastor has been doing lessons on that. That's when AD. That's when Russia started becoming known as Russia. Go ahead.
Oh, like an apostle, Elder Tahar always goes into that word Russia in the Hebrew, Ra'ash Shar, which Ra'ash is chief, okay, and Shar is prince. And that's another parallel in the scriptures. Chief prince, the chief prince of Tubal,
which is head prince.
Head prince. That's it. Yep. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion.
Right, and the mouth of a lion, the mouth represents who's dictating and giving the orders. That dictation is coming from England. And it's not just the English Parliament. No, it's coming from the Rothschilds, the city-state of London. That's who's running shit behind the scenes. One of the entities that's running the world behind the scenes. Go ahead.
Yep, it says, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power.
Right, because the dragon back then was who? That was the Roman Empire. And why did they give him his power? Because they mimicked the same war tactics, the same, political governmental structures, somewhat same economic system, the same bread and circuses type, what's the word I'm looking diversions to the people so that they wouldn't focus on the main issues that would affect their everyday lives. So the bread and circuses was a way of numbing them. Go ahead.
And his seat and great authority.
Right, and they got great authority because they got power over the whole entire planet, over the whole entire earth. Go ahead.
Verse 3, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death.
Right, so this head that was wounded to death happened to be the Roman Empire. During the time when the Apostle John saw this was the last year that the Edomite Roman Empire was ruling. And the last emperor that ruled was Domitian. And he was taken out in 96 AD. And that was the very year when Nerva, which was a Jake, came in. And that's when Jake started to rule the Roman Empire back then. You see? So there's a lot of history. And at that point, when Domitian went down and Nerva came up, that's when the head was wounded unto death. Because it was a deadly blow for a period of about 1,000 years, a little longer than 1,000 years. And when you know your history, from that point, really, well, what happened was Jake continued on the pagan Roman Empire. All the way up until 325 AD, roughly. And that's when they started, around 325 AD, they started, Constantine, became a Christian, but he had accepted Christian religion, but it really wasn't until around 380 AD that Theodoret, no, it wasn't Theodoret. I forgot the individual's name. I have to go back and check. He actually made the Christian religion the official religion of the Roman Empire. See, so that began a new age, so to speak. And then when the Renaissance period came in, that's when Jake fell and Esau started coming back into power. All right.
Yep. It says, and I saw one of the heads as they were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed.
Right. And when was his deadly wound healed? During the time of the Renaissance period. That's when it was healed. And that's why during the Renaissance, it wasn't during the time when the Byzantine Empire was ruling that they started to revive ancient Roman architecture and they started to revive ancient Roman literature, because according to them, during the time of the Renaissance, during the time of the Byzantine Empire, there was nothing going on. Everything was black.
Yep. Yes. And it says, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast.
Right, and that was during the time of the Renaissance period. All right, so now we're going to jump down to the 11th verse.
Yep, verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon.
Right, and this other beast coming up out of the earth is the same beast the Roman Empire, but today it would be classified or labeled as America. All right. So America is that beast that came up and was a revival or a renewal or a reawakening of the ancient Roman Empire. You know, it says, and he had two horns like a lamb, and that's your political party, your bipartisan system, as they call it, two parties, which is the Republicans and the Democrats. Back then, during the Roman Empire, it was the patricians and the plebeians. The patricians were the rich, the plebeians were the paupers, the poor. All right, or should I say, they officiated the business of the poor. Go ahead.
Yep.
And he spake as a dragon, and that goes into the legislation, the draconian legislation that you have today in America. Go ahead.
Yep. Verse 12. And he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed.
Right. And he, meaning this new beast, this eighth beast, this eighth head, this revival, exercises all the power of the first beast before him. And who was the first beast before him? Rome. So these aren't just things that we're just saying. This is actual history. This is actual prophecy. And how is he exercising all the power? He's showing you by and the image is speaking by way of what? Their political system, their entertainment system, the way that everything in America mimics, or a lot of things in America mimic the ancient Roman Empire. That's why even the AI overview will tell you, there's a lot of influence in America from ancient Rome and blah, blah, blah. And then they'll go into the different particulars, from the architecture to the philosophy to the this to the that.
Mm-hmm. Well, even the national bird, which is the eagle, which just shows you the parallels between ancient Rome and modern day America. Verse 12. And he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and he caused the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed.
Right, and they worshiped the first beast, which is Rome, whose deadly wound was healed. How was the deadly wound healed? When the Renaissance came into power, that's when the ancient Roman Empire started to be revived again. That's why it's no coincidence that during the Renaissance, that's when a lot of the Roman architecture and the Roman, ways started to be revived, from their art to their governmental buildings, so on and so forth. Go ahead.
Yep. And he doeth great wonders, so that he make a fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men.
Right, and that didn't happen during the Roman Empire. That didn't happen during the Greek Empire. That didn't happen during any of the Edomite empires that ruled, going all the way back to the Greeks. That happened during the time when the Roman Empire was fully established here in America. And that happened during World War II, when they were dropping bombs, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And those are the two main things, because that's really what stopped the war. But what most people don't understand is that in Japan, at that time, there were many bombs dropped in many different cities. Tokyo was one of them. There were many different bombs that were dropped. But what ended it was the last two bombs that were dropped that were, one was a nuclear bomb. I think the other one was an atomic bomb, Fat Boy and Little Man. And when those two were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that's really what brought, the end of this whole, that's actually what brought the end of World War II. And that's when, right after that, immediately after that, America was established, as the world reserve currency of the world. That's when the American economy really went through the roof. And all nations, were caught up into that, because they all had to comply with America and their economic system in order to be able to trade. You see, if they wanted to get in on the big bucks, they had to trade in the U.S. currency. And the elder, he had to roll out. So, we're gonna continue on. All right. So that's when they became, a superpower as far as controlling the economies of the world. See, back then, if you wanted to do trade in Rome, you had to trade according to the currency of Rome. Same thing here today. And right now, what's happening is we're seeing the end of the old world order, which is the U.S. dollar ruling, to the new currency, which will be a world currency, which is the MOTB, which the Apostle John saw in this vision here. He saw the vision of the MOTB and the new economic system of the entire world, and what it would take for people to be able to operate in this new system. And that would be through technology. And that's why in Daniel the 12th chapter says the knowledge will increase. So that there has to be a device inserted into you in order for you to function and operate in a new system. That's why all these different nations pretty much are going digital. Okay. And this whole fiasco with Trump and the tariffs and all that, it's a movie. Wag the dog. It's a movie that they're pushing out there. Now all of a sudden, he plans to make everything fair and this, that, and the other. He's looking like a madman, just like Biden was looking like a senile old man. It's all a game, just to establish a point, just to establish their goals, which is to fulfill their agenda. Right? It says, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. Yeah, and that's why America has been the leading example of these things around the world. Because when you really look at the world is really influenced by what America does. Because they've been known as a superpower. They've been known as this golden city. They've been known as a place where, if you want prosperity, you have to come to America. You have to be like America. So the nations of the world, desire to be like this place because they really believe, because they've been deceived to believe that if they do the things that Americans do, they'll be able to live the lifestyle that they portray to be here in America, which is called the American dream. But really, it's all BS when you really peel the layers back on that onion. Saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast. And what is that image to the beast? That's the whole Roman system. You see? And the whole Roman system, which is that image, that is what is reflected here in America based off the old ancient Roman ways. And that's why you see, if you saw a movie of ancient Rome and you saw a movie of America, they would mirror each other. As far if you saw like the similarities between the two, and you made two movies based off of the same thing, you will see the similarities between Rome and America. That is the image. You see, it's a figure. Matter of fact, when you do look at the word image, which had the wound by a sword and did live, right? Because they came back during the Renaissance. Let's look at this word image. The word image is the word icon, which the word icon means image. You have iconoclasm, which is the defacing of images. Right? You see here, icon in the Greek. An image, figure, likeness. And what is America a likeness of? America is a likeness of ancient Rome. Okay? Used in the likeness of renewed men to the Most High. The image of one, unseen likeness of any and see applied to man, account, power of command. One in whom the likeness of anyone is seen. Right. This is what we're looking for. The image of one. What is the image of one? The image of the Roman Empire. One in whom the likeness of anyone is seen. So America is a reflection, or in the likeness, or in the image of the Roman Empire. That's what the image is. Not a picture of Cesare Borgia, because they'll see icon, oh, that's image. The image. And it causes the image to speak. Because when they made movies about white Christ, he was speaking. Come on, man. Really? Really? That's ridiculous. That speaking part there is symbolic for the actions that America portrays of the ancient Roman Empire. That's how the image is speaking. Just like when Matter of fact, let's get this precept real quick in Habakkuk, the second chapter, right? Just to show you an example of it being symbolic. Romans 2, I'm sorry, I got Romans on the screen. Habakkuk 2 and 3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, meaning the prophecy. But at the end it shall what? Speak. Now, what does it mean to speak? Means to come to life. You know, the actions of the things that were spoken by the prophets happening in today's time. That's how it's speaking, by it being fulfilled. Like it says down here, he transgresses by wine. He's a proud man, neither keepeth at home. One enlarges his desires, hell and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Pretty much taking people's lands, taking people's wealth, putting people in captivity, dictating to people how they should be and where they should be and what they should do, telling them how to fix their troubles when they got plenty of troubles. This is all how the prophecies are speaking in these times. Same way that the image is speaking, by mimicking or mirroring everything that was done in ancient Rome. It's no difference, you know. But the simple-minded, they'll look at a movie, The Greatest Story Ever Told, or The Passion of the Christ, or any of these movies dealing with, you know, with what they portrayed as being an Edomite Messiah. And as soon as that image or that person starts speaking, they're like, that's the image of the beast speaking. When they made the movies, you see him speaking. The Edomite Christ, he's speaking. That's the fulfillment of prophecy. No, it's not. You know, but you buy that. Why? Because you don't do any serious research. You won't look into these things, and the Spirit is not dealing with you. Now, if you repent, come to the Lord, then the Lord will open up your mind if you're part of the elect to see these things. So let's go back, because I want to get to the other thing. It says that they should make an image to the beast which had a wound by a sword and did live. Verse 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. How did they give life to the image of the beast? The life that they gave to the image of the beast was when America, when the Renaissance was established, and later on America, that whole Roman way that was dormant, silenced for 1,000 years or more, started to come back to life. That's what it's talking about. The old Roman ways being reawakened in these times. Why? Because it was time for prophecy. It was a time of prophecy. It says that the image of the beast should both speak, see? And how is it speaking? By mirroring or the reflections of ancient Rome today. It says, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Why? Because right now, this is the wave of the future. And the system of Rome, ancient Rome, is being moved towards what's known as the New World Order, with a new world religion, a one world religion, a one world currency, one world military, one world everything, where everyone under the umbrella of this new world order would be in total control of the puppet masters, which would be the international banking families. You see? Now, let's go back here real quick. This is the image of the beast the Roman influence in America? This is another question that came into mind. Yes, interpretations of the image of the beast in the book of Revelation often link it to a perceived Roman influence in the United States. So you would have to say, okay, so what are these particular influences of Rome that are here in the United States? Well, when you look at the bread and circuses, for instance, these coliseums or the modern day stadiums, you know, the way that when you go to the gym, you see people scantily dressed. Well, in the ancient Greek Empire and Roman Empire, they would pretty much, you know, work out butt naked. That's where the word gym goes back to. Gymnasium or gymnos, which means naked. It's a Greek word. You see? That's one of the ways, you know, the Olympics. What do you think the Olympics go back to? They go back to Greece. Go back to Rome. Then you have the uh, um, same thing with the bread and circuses. Then you have the the legal system of America that is established at the Roman Empire. Because America today has what? Has a Senate House. The ancient Roman Empire had a Senate House. America today has what? A president. Ancient Rome had what? A Caesar, which was a president. Same thing as a president. With the senators and the laws and the legislation and the Latin phrases and terms that they have, for this legal system. The architecture of Rome is mirrored in a lot of these governmental buildings, or in these governmental buildings, some banks, and other buildings, but the main structures would be governmental institutions that are stylized in the architecture of ancient Rome. It says the image is seen as representing a global power, and it does that mirrors the first beast, which is who? Rome, often interpreted as the Roman Empire, and that is correct. In its persecution of dissenters, meaning those that go against it will be punished. And this is the truth. And we've been teaching about this, going way back. Elder Pastor just hit his 40th year. The other two apostles, 35 years. You go back to, High Priest Ariel, going way back when these revelations were first revealed to him on the book of Revelation. Way back then, before anybody even was talking about this stuff, You might have had some Edomites that were, into the scriptures back then, that spoke about certain things and parallels of America and Rome, but really, High Priest Ariel was the one that was able to break down the whole book of Revelation, which we have today. And I never heard too many people speak about these things, but now everybody's an expert because there's been so many videos of Great Millstone breaking down these things through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai, and everybody gets a little piece of here and there, whatever they want, and then they put their own spin to it, their own bullshit to it. But it's all right, because at the end of the day, Yahweh Shemel Shai knows who he gave these mysteries to. And we see it all playing out right now today here in America. It says, elaboration, the beast and the image. In Revelation 13, the beast rises from the sea, symbolizing a powerful tyrannical force. And that's true, because a dragon is known for its fierceness, is known for being keen. This beast is often interpreted as a revived Roman Empire or a political system with Roman roots. So you're just making that up, brother. Okay, so what are the roots of America? When you look at the legal system, what does the legal system go back to? Rome. And it even tells you that the so-called founding fathers, which they weren't founding, they were the robbing fathers, right? They established the legal system of America according to the Roman legislation. Come on, people. The image of the beast, described in Revelation 13, verses 14 to 15, is then said to represent a power that mimics the first beast's actions and influence. Why? Because it says that it exercises all the power of the first beast before him. Right there, the word exercises is the word poieo. Poieo. What's the word poieo means to make. What's the name of things made to produce, construct, form, fashion, to be the authors of. Just trying to get the main one. To carry out, to execute. See? To execute, to exercise. All right? So exercise, to execute, to be the authors of a thing. And that is the root word. Okay. So let's go back. Let's get the word exercise. Definition. Activity requiring physical effort carried out to sustain or improve health and fitness. A process or activity carried out for a specific purpose, especially one concerned with a specified area or skill. And that's what they're doing. They're exercising all the power of the first, because it's letting you know what it is that they're exercising the power of the first beast before them, which was the ancient Roman Empire. And that's why the Apostle John was writing this on the island of Patmos, which he was condemned there by the Caesars to that island for sedition. He said it himself that he was on the island, because of the word of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Let's see what else this got. American influence. Some interpretations identify the United States as the image of the beast, arguing that America's political and economic power, coupled with its influence on world events, which it is, mirrors the first beast. See, this view is often associated with the idea of a global movement led by the U.S. that will impose its will on the world, potentially through religious persecution. And there's more than just religious persecution. Political, economic, so on and so forth. And the main thing that they're cornering the people of the world with is economical. All right? And that's why it speaks about the MOTB in that same chapter, because that's once this power is in place, this beast is in place and mirrors the ancient Roman Empire, then they're going to corner the market, so to speak, with their new world economic currency, which would be what? A digital system. In order to access it, you have to have a particular device, which is the micro C-hip. It says religious persecution. The key aspect of this interpretation is the idea that the image of the beast will use the power to persecute those who do not conform to its beliefs or worship its image. And it's true. Not now they're saying that they're locking up pastors, that whose views are considered to be like extreme or considered to be a confrontational or whatever the case may be. Because at the end of the day, they want a docile world where the only people that they want to be in that world are those that are obedient to them. That's why Yahweh Shah said, if the Lord don't shorten the days, there would be no flesh left to be saved. It says this is often seen as a parallel to the historical persecution by the Roman Empire and is used as a warning about the potential dangers of religious and political power being intertwined. And it is. Different interpretations. It is important to note that all interpretations of Revelation 13 align with this view. Some interpretations focus on beasts as historic general rather than specific nation political system. All right, so you get pretty much the idea. So America is following all of the ways of ancient Rome, because that is the prophecy or the fulfillment of prophecy written in the book of Revelation 13. And we're at the point now in that prophecy of the economic system that's being set up and established right before everybody's eyes. And you still have those that deny it, fight against it, so on and so forth. But it's okay. You do you. Because at the end of the day, the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai's will is going to prevail. His word is going to prevail, and it's going to be fulfilled. And the sooner these devils push that MOTB, which is a microcia, the sooner this place will go down. And the Lord said it best, except those days be shortened, there will no flesh be left to be saved. Why? Because it's going to be a great time of tribulation, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that very same time. But at that time, that people shall be delivered, everyone that should be found written in the book. But others are going to be, have everlasting shame, meaning they're going to be ashamed for a long time. They're going to have their head down because they fought against this, and they kept, denying the obvious. So much so that when they see the obvious coming out, they have to try to tweak and twist and turn and wiggle, one of Elder Yasharamba's favorite words, around to try to, to cover up their tracks. But the Lord knows. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.